Hello everyone, Fugly here, and I'm finally getting around to my Bayonetta 3 review. I know when I did my Trinity Masquerade Special Collector's Edition of Bayonetta 3 unboxing video, I said I will do a review. I know that was all the way back in October of 2022. The reason why it's taken me so long is I need to get the appropriate video capture equipment and software, and just in my personal life to, fully appreciate the game and then be able to make this video. My free time is very scarce, so that is the reason for the delay. Without further ado, let's get into the review. So the first part that I want to review that is the most important is the gameplay. I rated it a 9.5 out of 10. To me, I believe it is the best part of the series, which is the gameplay, and the Bayonetta gameplay is a 10 out of 10. To me, that's the perfection. The only reason why I'm putting in a 9.5 is for the sections for Jean and Viola, who you do get to play as. What I liked about it is it did give a variety that, it wasn't just, a constant, consistent gameplay of Bayonetta to where it can be redundant. I do like that it broke it up. However, it feels like an appetizer, not the main course, which is what's intended, but due to that, I believe their gameplay sections are not as polished as what the Bayonetta sections are. That's why anytime that you play as Bayonetta, that is 10 out of 10 gameplay, whereas Jean and Viola, it feels more like a 9.5. Just, you can kind of feel the lack of polish there. So what I liked about the gameplay is that there's a large variety of options. So one of the newer aspects compared to Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2 is this demon summoning system where you can get these crazy kaiju-esque battles with at-will summoning. So it isn't like a special event. You can summon these crazy, huge demon monsters to come to aid you at any time that you want. And this may seem like it would break the gameplay mechanic, offering too much of an advantage in your favor, but it doesn't. And there's two reasons for this. Is that Bayonetta is left vulnerable when you're doing this demon summoning, and you can control this giant demon at will. Bayonetta can be attacked and take damage. The demons themselves can be attacked, and they can also get enraged and attack you back. There's special items that kind of help with this later in the game that you can unlock for being attacked or being left vulnerable, as well as the enragement system, as well as also the demons being attacked, but you need to unlock those. Another thing is that it uses up your magic meter, so you can't just use this non-stop. It will drain your meter, and you need to build that meter back up. Of course, there's also workarounds around this where you can use these demons unlimited, but again, it needs to either be unlocked or in special areas. So there's a variety of new equipment that you can add for new items that will change up the attack style for Bayonetta and Viola, and it also changes the beast within, which is kind of this like ultimate power transformation that they go through that, doesn't have to do with a kaiju-esque demon summon. Like Bayonetta, for instance, can transform into kind of this Madama butterfly-looking transformation, and it gives her a lot of temporary extra attack power, for instance. I really like that variety and these new Beast Within transformations. There's also a lot of unlockable and equipable new skills. Kind of what I mentioned is like you obtain these seeds, and then you can go to Radon's store and be able to purchase new equipment such as items, which he calls accessories, and this will help with unlocking new abilities, and you can increase your health meter as well as your magic meters as well. And last but not least, as far as the gameplay section goes, I really enjoyed the fantastic boss fights. I thought those were just phenomenal. So moving on to our next section is controls. I rank that a 9.5 out of 10 as well. So buttery smooth controls for Bayonetta and Jean, I thought that was great. The only reason I didn't give it a perfect score is I felt at times that playing as Viola was a bit awkward to play as after playing as Bayonetta, because Bayonetta just has the perfect gameplay, the perfect control setup, and so switching over to Viola can feel a bit jarring at times. With that being said, the controls are almost perfect. moving on to the next section is the story. I gave that a 6.5 out of 10. It is the most controversial part of the game, as many of you have probably heard. The ending could be a little confusing, could be a bit confusing, especially for newbies. And even for those that, have experienced Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2, at first playthrough it can be a bit confusing. I'll have a spoiler section at the end of this review. I'll give a full warning. So for those of you that haven't played the game all the way to the end, you can still watch this video. I'll give you a warning when I'm about to go into spoiler territory when talking about the story. So that will be at the end of the overall score. One thing I did appreciate about the story was the risk-taking that it took with it. I've come to appreciate that, as I'll mention in my spoiler review. The major hit to the story that I felt, even with all the craziness at the end, was I felt like there was a lack of a good villain build-up. Like Baldur and the first two games, I thought they did a great job with building his story and just the overall lore around the Umbra and Lumen and everything concerning that. I thought there was a better, more interesting build-up there, whereas I feel like the villain in this story doesn't really have that build-up. And I feel like the surprise at the end was, as far as the villain goes, wasn't as surprising. The graphics is the next section that I'm going to rate, and I gave that a 5.5 out of 10. It is the worst part of the game in my opinion. I feel like the graphics are very mediocre. The visuals come across as very pixely at certain points. It's really not that impressive. When I was playing it, it kind of felt like PS3 graphics. Not to kind of harp on the PS3, but that system came out in 2006, and here we're playing this game in 2022. So, that's why I rank that as low as it is. And I don't believe the Switch can be used as an excuse here. We've seen several games that look fantastic. I feel like they just didn't live up to the standard that should be set for Switch games with its graphical presentation. The next section that we're going to review is the sound, and this would include both the music and the voice acting. I give that a 9.5 out of 10. So I think it has a fantastic and epic sounding tracks for the OST for Bayonetta 3. So we'll get that out of the way. Now let's go into the more controversial side of this portion, which is Jennifer Hale versus Helena Taylor. There's a lot of controversy about Helena Taylor not reprising the role. I don't really want to get into that too much right now, but I will say that I think I might actually prefer Jennifer Hale as Bayonetta over Helena Taylor, and the reason why is I think she has just a bit more skill to address the nuance of different Bayonettas. So as you've seen from my unboxing video, there's a lot of different Bayonettas. There's like an Egyptian Bayonetta, there's a Chinese Bayonetta, there's kind of like a city punk, cyberpunk, futuristic Bayonetta, and all these different Bayonettas have little nuances that Jennifer Hale does with the voice acting that I thought was fantastic. So yeah, Jennifer Hale knocked it out of the park. I think the Bayonetta series is in safe hands with her in the Bayonetta role. The only negative I have about the sound is there's just a lack of options to listen to the tracks at will as like a bonus unlockable at the end of the game. That's something that I like seeing as a reward for beating a game, is you get to go and listen to the tracks. I understand it kind of eats up memory, but it's just kind of nice to have. That's the only thing that stopped it from being perfect. Other than that, again, it's a 9.5 out of 10. We're going to go into content. Content, I give it a 8 out of 10. So there's 14 main chapters. All of them have lots of replayability. There's a lot of post-ending collectibles that is great. So I gave it, again, an 8 out of 10. I feel like for an action game, this was fairly good in terms of content. So out of all of these reviews, and based on my weighted average system that I used, the overall score came to an 8.3 out of 10. And just a quick review as to what played into the overall score. So the pros is it has top tier gameplay, which is expected for the Bayonetta series, large variety of playstyles and collectibles, and Jennifer Hale excels at the role of Bayonetta. The cons, underdeveloped and confusing narrative, and then last is the mediocre graphics. So that's kind of what resulted in the 8.3 out of 10 score. Now, at this time, listeners that have not played through the game, I'm going into spoiler territory, so this is your warning to click off this video and go watch something else. So I'll just dive right into the spoilers. So at first, when the game ended, I didn't really appreciate it enough that the ending surprised me. I've really sat on this idea and kind of let it marinate that it wasn't really a happy ending. That, Cereza essentially dies and goes to, the Umbran version of hell, and Luca goes with her, and I didn't see that coming, and I think I need to appreciate that more, that it took a risk and it was willing to surprise me and subvert my expectations, so I appreciate that. A lot of people have been harping on the idea of a Luca and Bayonetta love story. I don't mind it as much. I thought there was some flirtations in Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2, but I could also see it with Jean too, but I understand why people are upset at it. I'm not, because I think the important thing to understand is that, and this was kind of a surprise spoiler as well, is that Bayonetta 1, Bayonetta 2, and Bayonetta 3 are kind of different universe or different timeline Bayonettas. So we kind of got the confirmation of a theory that was going around that Bayonetta 3 is the brave Cereza that grows up from Bayonetta 1. So in the first Bayonetta, she goes back and protects kind of this timey-wimey situation of her younger self and kind of alters the past in some way. And so Bayonetta 3 is about her past self that has been altered and grows up, and this is who we play as. Now this version, it would make sense for her to be a little bit more open to Luca, I feel like, as a love interest. Whereas like maybe the Bayonetta 1 is a little bit closed off to relationships. So I think it makes sense. I'm not as upset about it. And then as far as Viola being the daughter of Luca and Bayonetta in an alternate universe, I appreciate it. I think she makes for an interesting descendant of both those characters. I see a little bit of both of those characters in Viola. I didn't mind that. They definitely hinted at it, so it wasn't like a super surprising reveal. Speaking of which, I'm very cautiously optimistic about Viola being the new Bayonetta if they decide to make a Bayonetta 4. And I'm really hoping that it's kind of like a Bayonetta 2 situation where Viola as Bayonetta goes back to rescue Cereza, and we can get Cereza resurrected and back to her full Bayonetta self again. That's what I would like to see. I had heard a lot of talk that Bayonetta 3 will be the ending of it, kind of the ending of the trilogy. I'm really hoping that they decide to move on with the Bayonetta 4, because it makes this game much better if there's a hopeful future towards it. I do think that the narrative does deserve a bit more criticism if this is the last main game of the series. I don't think it's a strong enough ending to where I feel comfortable ending the series on this note. Again, like once I understood that 3 is Brave Cereza, it helped with a lot of the confusion of the game. It helped with the confusion of the surprise of Bayonetta 1 coming in, Bayonetta 2 coming in, and it's like, oh, they're all three games are in an alternate reality. Well, yes and no. It's kind of just due to timey-wimey timeline stuff and just multiversal theory. It can get a little confusing, but once I understood that 3 is specifically Brave Cereza from the first game, it kind of helped me feel more comfortable that this is a continuous narrative. At first I was just like, oh, so 1, 2, and 3 are not continuous narratives. They are now, it's just more loosely connected than what we had previously thought. So yeah, with that being said, that's my thoughts on the spoilers. I thought it was kind of neat to have a post-credits boss fight. I thought that was pretty cool, as well as additional story elements that came from it. Yeah, great game. Definitely recommend it to any action game fan, any previous Bayonetta fan, or anyone that's just curious about the series. I think it's well worth a purchase. And if you like this review, please like and subscribe, and let me know down below, what did you think of Bayonetta 3? If you want to talk about the spoilers, just please mark your comments as spoilers just to be kind to other people. And I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you. Have a great day.